What's good, everybody? It's Todd Smith here alongside my tag team partner Dale Clifford out there in Fernley, Nevada. Welcome to yet another episode of the No Gimmicks podcast. This week we're reviewing the NXT Brooklyn pay-per-view brought to you by the WWE. So, let's start off here, Dale. We got the dream match, the match that myself and several other professional wrestling fans have been looking forward to for several years. Samoa Joe versus the King of Strong Style himself, Shinsuke Nakamura, for the NXT Championship. This one delivered. It was everything I wanted to be. I think Joe and Nakamura put on probably one of the best matches that I've seen, out of NXT for the past year. What's your thoughts on this one, Dale?
It definitely, absolutely delivered for an NXT championship match, and considering that Brooklyn seems to be what NXT kind of has now made their WrestleMania event.
Yes.
It definitely had that feel. It absolutely delivered. So now, it was like when we kind of look at it, we got Nakamura versus Samoa Joe, and then Nakamura versus Sami Zayn from NXT Dallas.
Yes.
Probably our top two matches. Then you also got to put in Nakamura and Finn Balor. So there's a very common trend here. Shinsuke Nakamura
Noticing a trend, yeah.
is the best talent to enter NXT.
Without question. This guy is something special. He is an enigma. I know they used to refer to Edge as an enigma back in the day, but he is just such an unorthodox professional wrestler. Like I said, there are a lot of people who aren't going to like him because he's not the traditional strong style worker. Strong style was invented by Antonio Inoki. This guy, there is no father to his style. I think at one point in time I even referred to him as the ODB of NXT. The guy comes out looking like a cross between Michael Jackson. He has his hair, kind of spread over to one side of his head. He has all these, unique body movements and, idiosyncrasies and whatnot. And my goodness, like I said, when he steps between those ropes, he will kick your head off. In the intro, 15,000 fans over there in the Barclays Center rose to their feet and just were absolutely popping for a violinist. Who would have ever thought, Dale, that a violinist would make that many people pop at a pro wrestling show?
Absolutely crazy, and I know that
he was phenomenal.
It's like he's phenomenal. His entrance is just absolutely killer. I know that I had texted you when I was started this match that I anticipate a future matchup between Bobby Roode and Nakamura, and I just cannot absolutely wait for the crowd war with those two guys' entrance musics.
Wow, that crowd would be nuts.
Plus, the match itself is going to be pretty darn good. I don't know how much Roode can deliver with everybody else that Nakamura has stepped up there, but I definitely think it will deliver. But yeah, the crowd battle for those two guys is just going to, I think, may actually steal the from the match itself, which is unfortunate. But that just tells you how much those two songs are over with the crowd.
Yeah. Glorious. The one thing that really stood out to me about Nakamura, because he is known so well for being such a striker and such a hard hitter, that German suplex that he threw on Joe, man, wow. He hit him with that, and I just said, yeah, that looked pretty sharp there. I like that. But yeah, definitely a good contest between these two. Definitely a good display of offense between both guys. Joe brought it. Nakamura, he always, brings it out there, especially on a big stage. I was really hoping to see him versus Kota Ibushi, but it's looking like Kota Ibushi is not signing a deal with the WWE right now, so I'll just have to remember that match they had from Wrestle Kingdom 9.
Well, if you noticed during when they were doing the build-up, Kota Ibushi was in the locker room of Nakamura. So right now,
him
and Nakamura are kind of on the best of sides, even though I was like, now I know Ibushi hasn't signed a full-time deal, but I definitely know he's getting paid per appearance, and he's going to be making some big-time appearances in the future for WWE as he continues to make his way through the CWC. But that's for another day.
We could only hope. We can only hope and pray for that match because, like I said, I got to see at Wrestle Kingdom 9 from New Japan, and it was something else. But moving on here to Asuka versus Bayley for the NXT Women's Championship. There's a very good chance that this was Bayley's swan song and that this was her final match in NXT, and that it looks like she might be heading to the main roster here. I know for forever and a day here we've been saying that Bayley's going to wind up on the main roster, but I really have a strong feeling to believe after the fact that Asuka retained on Saturday night. It's finally looking like it's gonna happen now. You feeling the same way, Dale?
I definitely can understand the thinking, but man, the NXT Women's Division is hurt without Bayley. But I know that she has put her time in at NXT, and typically just kind of like Finn did in failing to regain that championship. The next move was out of NXT and up to the main roster, and I know that you had pointed it out earlier when we were doing our SummerSlam review that you were hoping that Bayley becomes a part of the SmackDown roster, and I kind of agree with you. If she's going to make the jump, I hope it's the SmackDown.
Yes, they need her.
Because that boosts their division with the add of Nikki Bella. But yeah, back to Asuka and Bayley from NXT Brooklyn. The match was okay. I was definitely expecting a little bit more from this one. I don't think it lived up to their first match at all. I think it and it felt a little sloppy at times, but still a solid women's effort. But I definitely think my bar was a little bit higher on this one. And you know what? That's not a bad. But that's not a bad thing coming from women to now expect them to actually deliver good matches.
Exactly. We've come a long way. And I see that they're actually putting a special together about how basically they went from being divas to being the Women's Revolution to now no longer being referred to as the name diva and now actually being referred to as women wrestlers. There was a sequence there towards the end of that match where I literally felt some of those kits that Asuka was delivering to Bayley all the way out here in Bristol, Connecticut. She was hitting her hard. And that last kick, she hit her with like one of those, I think they called it the buzzsaw kick, like Tajiri used to hit his opponents with. Wow. She laid Bayley out with that one. And I just said, well, if nothing else, I'll tell you what, they definitely finished the match off strong. Because there were definitely some moments there, like you said, where things looked a little sloppy. But yeah, Asuka, she took it to her, man. She really did. And it was a nice little showing of respect there at the end of the contest. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing more of Asuka. And I'm thinking that Ember Moon is going to challenge her. That's going to be the next big challenge for Asuka. And we look forward to seeing Bayley up there in the main roster. So moving on.
Since you brought up her name, we might as well jump to her debut match against Billie Kay. We'll shuffle our order here.
Why not?
Shuffle the order up a little bit.
Why not?
Let's go ahead and break that match down a little bit. I think Ember Moon definitely had a pretty solid debut.
Yes.
Showing some athleticism coming from the women's side. Definitely very creepy too. Red eyes. So I was
I like the red eyes. I did
highly
those.
Impressed with her debut and looking to see what she can do going forward.
I had never seen Ember Moon until within the past 2 weeks. I had heard all the hype. I had heard all these good things about her, so I looked her up. Her name was Athena when she worked out there in the indie circuit, and I looked up a video on YouTube, which coincidentally is where the No Gimmicks podcast is actually located out on YouTube. I just entered top 10 moves for Athena, and I saw some of the stuff that she could do. Okay, one of them was that front flip forearm, which she actually delivered in the match against Billie Kay, and that sweet finisher. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but it's kind of like a diving rolling cutter that she does, right? Almost like a Stone Cold Stunner.
Oh yeah.
From up, that is sweet.
Oh, absolutely marked out for that finisher. That just is absolutely fantastic and a nice little addition to the women's division on what is a pretty solid finishing move.
And Billie Kay was not even in position. She was not in proper position. She actually kind of maneuvered her body in midair and readjusted to hit her perfectly with that. I just said, oh yeah. I said, okay. I said, Ember Moon is the real deal. She reminds me of Jazz. Remember Jazz from back in the day, Dale?
Yep.
The African-American female wrestler named Jazz. She was bad. Okay? That's who she reminds me of, like a younger, more athletic version of her. I'm looking for some very big things for Ember Moon here in the future on the NXT roster. Definitely a good showing for her in her debut. Moving on here. So another title match that we saw the Revival, Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson, I believe it is, versus Gargano and Ciampa for the NXT Tag Team Championships. Now, I was a bit surprised here that the Revival actually retained their titles in this match. Were you, Dale?
Yes, a little bit, but I think you brought up a very relevant point as to why it makes sense that the Revival ended up kind of hanging on and retaining the Tag Team Championships here.
Basically, my point is, I think at this time, after what I've seen in the Cruiserweight Classic, what Gargano and Ciampa had displayed, I think these guys are both going to wind up on the main roster over there on Raw, competing in the Cruiserweight division. There was actually a moment in that match, though, after the Revival retained, when Ciampa kind of went over to help up Johnny Gargano. I was sitting there watching this show with my boy Khalil Smith, always, who's hooking me up with good wrestling, by the way. And I just told him, I just said, why did I think for a second there that Ciampa was going to actually go after the guy and he was going to turn heel? And I just kind of kept on hearing that phrase in my movie. I think it was from the movie Karate Kid. Sweep the leg, Johnny. Sweep the leg. And I thought Tommaso Ciampa was going to sweep his legs from underneath him and he was going to turn on him. And I said, those two would make for a good feud in NXT, but looks like they're staying together and they're actually going to, remain cool and all that, and they're actually going to be competing up there in the main roster.
Well,
yeah, that's what I think is coming out of this.
I think your line of thinking is pretty good. I know that they're sticking around NXT for a bit, but it's like if they make that main roster jump, that will be interesting because I think that'll be a kind of some alterations to the contract that they signed, which definitely means no more indie gigs if they're making the jump to the main roster.
Exactly. And I think what's coming next for the Revival, I think we're going to see a feud between them and TM61.
Yes.
TM61 fell to them in a match, I think, about a week ago. Is that correct?
But I still think TM61 has to kind of get themselves now through the Authors of Pain. We saw what the Authors of Pain did to American Alpha. Now TM61 is in that same boat. Mm-hmm. And obviously, the Revival are heels. Authors of Pain are heels. So you know that they're not meeting up at some point. We've got to find a new fan favorite team that's going to be able to go after the Revival. And TM61 makes sense. So only time will tell on that one.
Yeah, because I think the Authors of Pain, those guys, they're very physical, they're very big, and they're very dominant. But my goodness, like I said, those guys are raw. They are very raw, and they definitely need to develop a little bit more. And they need to establish those guys. We still do not know their names. I mean, I know their names because I've done some research on them. I know them as Sonny Denza and Chisholm Somani. I know their backgrounds and whatnot. But those guys have not even been referred to individually by names on air yet. So I think once they get a little bit more established, I think we could eventually see some sort of a match between them and the Revival. And boy, that's going to be something. That's going to be a sight to behold once that finally takes place there. Very, very hard-hitting match. I think actually that match would be glorious, wouldn't it, Dale? Which moves us to our next topic. The long-awaited debut of one Mr. Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode, who established himself over there in Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, Impact Wrestling. He's debuting against Andrade Cien Almas. And, of course, he came away with the victory. This was a good match here, and I was actually impressed with the amount of offense that they let Cien Almas get in this match. If they would just change that guy's ring gear, I think he'd be taken a little bit more serious. This week, he kind of looked like a cross between Marcus Bagwell from the American Males. He was wearing the Godfather's hat, and I think he borrowed Bruce the Barber Beefcake's pants to compete in the match against Bobby Roode. What's your thoughts on this one, Dale?
I know that he attempted the double moonsault, not from the top rope, but across the ring.
God, I love when he does that.
But Bobby Roode was anticipating the second moonsault and got the knees up on that. Mm-hmm. I also was kind of surprised to see that they altered Bobby Roode's finisher. He's not using the Plex.
That I don't like.
I'm not digging the Glorious Bomb
I don't like that
finisher that he has right now. I was kind of waiting for the Roode Plex.
No.
That was a little bit disappointing. And probably the only thing I found disappointing about
me and you the same.
Bobby Roode's debut. Absolutely glorious entrance. That slow descent down.
Yeah.
And again, the crowd absolutely eating up that song.
Loved it.
So I definitely know that he is on his way, and we know he's a big-time player in NXT. He's not going to be dealing with... Obviously, he opened with Cien Almas, who is a young up-and-comer trying to establish himself. Bobby Roode's not going to be dealing with too many of these guys for very long. And I don't think it will be too long before he's trying to chase down Nakamura. I think Nakamura and Samoa Joe are going to go one more time, and then maybe at that point we'll see Bobby Roode's attempt to take the title.
Yes. And kudos to the production team on the entrance, because as soon as he kind of got down from his pedestal, he kind of walked over by the screen and he pointed to it, and his name, I think, Glorious came up on the screen, I believe, right? When he pointed to the screen.
It was either Glorious or, no, I think it went Roode. I think it was Roode, either way.
It was Roode. Okay, yeah, but that was just a nice touch, whatever it was that they displayed up there. I really like that. But yeah, definitely a solid debut for Roode. And as we all know, using Andrade Cien Almas as the example here, finishers can change. He's no longer using the running double knees. He's now using that kind of hammerlock DDT, which looks pretty cool. So, it might just take a couple weeks for them to realize that the Glorious Bomb isn't exactly the right fit for him, and they might actually go back to the either the Perfect Plex or the Northern Lights Clothesline lariat that he used over there in TNA. But let's talk about Austin Aries versus No Way Jose, which was the opener here. This one, I was actually surprised at how much time they gave these guys. They gave these guys probably about a solid 15 minutes or so, and they actually allowed No Way Jose to kind of display his skill set. And Austin, I think, actually, guided him and carried him to a pretty good match. You agree with that one, Dale?
Yep, no, this was a good match. But I think it kind of got overshadowed by what followed.
Mm-hmm.
And the confrontation between Hideo Itami and Austin Aries.
Yes.
And the to sleep.
About freaking time. We were just saying that a couple weeks ago. Yes.
And I was so happy that NXT even acknowledged that he's the man that created the damn move.
Yes. That made it even better. Yes. Thank you, NXT. Now, finish the deal, man. Let the guy use that move as his finisher during the match. It needs to happen.
Let me go back to Aries versus No Way Jose. It did exactly what I thought it was going to do. It was like Austin helped No Way Jose kind of show off some of the things that he can do. Kind of stretch No Way Jose a little bit longer than he's gone in some of the other build-up matches for his character. Aries, as I said, ultimately went over, and now we're going to get this encounter between Hideo Itami and Austin Aries, which I'm absolutely looking forward to. NXT is continuing to deliver the matchups that I think a lot of the world, when you follow the indie scene, has been wanting to see.
Yes, and I like the finish there in the match between Austin Aries and No Way Jose. He kind of hit him with a sunset flip power bomb, and then he kind of flipped that over or floated over into the last chancery. Nice little transition there. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely a great finish there.
You pair up the technical skills and the aerial skills of someone like Austin Aries, and you got the hard-hitting, smash mouth style of someone like Hideo Itami. Also, he can do some good, technical stuff as well. That's going to be a solid encounter there once they finally give that to us. I'm looking for that to happen probably on a TakeOver show coming up in the near future.
One last thing before we wrap up. I just wanted to note that we also saw a promo video for the character Sanity.
Yes, let's not forget that.
And wanted to get your thoughts on what you think that might be.
Two thoughts I have. One, it's either going to be possibly Eric Young, who made an appearance in NXT not too long ago, and then he just disappeared after having maybe like one match or so. Or possibly there's a new guy who's, I guess, recently reported to the Performance Center by the name of Tommy End. Now, Tommy End, if you have to, compare this guy to anyone, if you're into like death metal or like the whole black metal scene from over there in Eastern Europe, he's a Dutch guy. He just looks like kind of a scary looking dude that you do not want to mess with, but he also bears a striking resemblance to someone like CM Punk. He is covered in tats. Like he kind of has like the whole kind of, like I said, heavy metal or punk rock look going for him. And he is one hell of a striker. So he could go toe-to-toe with someone like Hideo Itami or someone like Shinsuke Nakamura. I'm thinking that it's going to be one of those two guys who are going to be introduced under this the Sanity vignette that we saw. That's just my thoughts. You, Dale?
You know what? Eric Young makes sense. All I know is that my wife saw it, and she's like, please don't let this be WWE's attempt to do Impact Wrestling's Decay, and that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you shared that with me, I just said to myself, I said, you know what? I actually like Decay. I just don't understand where on God's green earth they were going that storyline between Bram and Rosemary recently. That was just some weird, like I said, low budget horror movie type crap that we saw there. But yeah, I think it's going to turn out to be Eric Young or possibly Tommy Inn, and I think I have enough faith in NXT and their booking and their creative that we're going to get something good out of it regardless. That pretty much, ends our NXT Brooklyn recap. If you had to give this show a grade, Dale, what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm going to go 8.
That's fair. I was going to say, 8, 8.5, somewhere around there. No more than that because I expected a little bit more from Bayley and Asuka. But other than that, like I said, everything else pretty much delivered. This is what Dale and I do, folks. We enjoy talking wrestling. We enjoy delivering good content to our listeners here with the No Gimmicks podcast. Thank you once again for tuning into our podcast and supporting us this past week. This has been our most successful week since Dale and I relaunched the show. Actually got close to about 100 views with all of our episodes that we posted up on our official YouTube channel. Please continue to visit our official YouTube channel. Also subscribe. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and I also post my links up on my personal LinkedIn account weekly, usually on Monday afternoons or evenings. Also, feel free to share the link. Share the link with other friends and family and also other wrestling fans who would be interested in checking out the No Gimmicks podcast. So, until next time around, from my tag team partner Dale Clifford out there in Fernley, Nevada, and from myself, Todd Smith, here in Bristol, Connecticut, y'all take care.